Why did alcohol steal my hopes and dreams? Well, what I found when I was drinking, I was stuck. I'm a musician, basically, and I've always worked for myself. But I was still stuck in that routine. It wasn't a 9 till 5, but it was working in the evenings nearly every single day. And to get through that, I drank. It's like exactly the same as a Monday to Friday job, 9 till 5, and people go out, you spend all their money in the pub, whether that's buying a few grams of Coke, then you spend all your money on like expensive drinks, you buy takeaways, you spend the Sunday in bed ordering fucking Domino's. Well, I was actually doing that, but as a musician, even though I didn't have the constraints, I didn't have a boss. But actually, I was so under the spell of the whole thing anyway. Yeah, slightly outside of the norm. But I was actually in an occupation where it was encouraged even more to drink. I think every single job encourages you to drink, the social aspect of it, including healthcare, nurses, dentists, doctors, heart surgeons. Some of those are statistically the highest or the biggest drinkers. And drug users, actually. But for me, it just destroyed. It destroyed any hope of achieving my dreams. You'd sit in the pub beer garden, in the freezing cold, in like January snow in the UK. I remember just being so cold. I was just like, I remember thinking at the time, what am I doing? I wish I could be in a hot country. But then when I was drinking, none of that ever happened. Yeah, you might go away for 3 days. I remember going away to Ibiza with 2 friends. I think it was for 3 nights. And as soon as we got there, we found a cocaine dealer. Didn't even leave the hotel. Just brought so much cocaine. Didn't even leave. Just sat in the hotel room feeling so anxious that just didn't want to leave. So we went all the way to Ibiza to have some nice weather. and didn't. Whereas now, sober, 6+ years sober, I now live in Portugal with residency. And what's the difference? Alcohol is so part of normal daily life, and it suppresses society. I'm not going to get into any conspiracy theories, but this is what it did for me. And it numbed me. It made me believe, even though I'm someone who's always believed there's another way to life than the conventional 9 till 5, it's still really lowered where I thought I could go to and what I could achieve. Whereas now, there's nothing pushing me down. I always felt like there was a pair of hands on my shoulders, saying, no, you can't do that. Or everything was so hard. Whereas if you put 10% of the effort in it takes to get drunk every single week, whether that's just one night, the weekend, that crippling hangover the next day, if you just use a bit of that energy into creating a better life, it's all possible. And that's the biggest thing I learned on my sobriety journey, is that if you said to me just over 6 years ago that I will be sober and successfully sober, living the life that I had always wanted, which is to live in a hot country where the weather, it's actually raining now, but where the weather is good most of the time, ride around on a motorbike, play tennis, be healthy, feel good naturally. I would have told you to fuck off 6 years ago. I wouldn't have believed that it was possible. And the biggest thing that sobriety and the journey of sobriety has taught me is that if you have a little bit of trust and a little tiny bit of belief after you've trusted the process, and you do the hard work, literally anything is possible. And now, everything else in comparison to that seems easy. People say, oh, how do you do all these things? Whether that's, I did my HGV Class 1 license a couple of years ago, which is driving a huge articulated truck. I passed that first time, no minors. I did my motorbike test, passed that first time, no minors. How do you do all these things? How do you have the appetite to keep going and going and going? How do you do residency in Portugal, which is really difficult? And it's because everything else, compared to the energy it took to either get drunk all the time and take cocaine or whatever drug you're into, or the recovery aspect, that giving up your best friend, your sort of partner in crime, you know, that thing. I had a professional relationship with alcohol for over 12 years. That was so hard. Whereas now, because I've achieved that, everything seems easy. And that's the difference between then and now. I used to dream when I was drinking. I used to dream of being sober. I used to dream of the better life. I used to dream about being in a hot country. I used to dream about having a motorbike. I used to dream about being fit, healthy, losing weight. I lost 10 stone. And all I had to do was remove two things. One main thing, which was alcohol, and then drugs. And all of those things were possible. So when people say, oh, I don't want to have to give all like alcohol up and it's a huge part of my life, you actually just taken back control and you get all of this. What would you rather? To go to the pub every weekend or to have the life I'm living right now? I know what I would have said if someone did ask me 6 years ago. I would want both. But ultimately, deep down, I knew I actually wanted to feel good. And I didn't want to feel depressed anymore. I didn't want to feel anxious. And I certainly didn't want to feel suicidal. So, there is another way. And it's the best fucking way. And I think you speak to anyone who is sober in recovery successfully and ask them, do they regret not drinking last night? And I've never ever heard someone say that they do regret not drinking.